Applied to architecture, snobbery is the only thing that stands between us and tedious barbarism. There are exactly two types of snobbery. Some say 11, but they're wrong. They're just two. The evil type is the one we all love to hate, and also the one that some of us love to practice. It stems from the individual's desire not to show others that he or she is superior to them, but to imply it, to be confident in their superiority. It does not seek validation, since seeking validation signals a lack of confidence. No, I am better than you and I don't need to prove it. Which is why it's so annoying, since that type of snobbery is usually ungrounded. Examples abound, but here's one that really stuck in my mind. You know the train station, the subway hub on the Union Square, Manhattan? It's a huge part of the New York experience that visitors are usually completely unaware of. So there was this young fellow playing classical guitar, a piece by Francisco Tárrega, I think. I'm no expert in purely instrumental music, but it did sound, well, exquisite, if you will. And a young woman was passing by, just passing by. So what? I mean, a young woman minding her own business, that's nothing out of the ordinary, right? Ignoring the musician, well, that's fine, of course. I mean, you'd think she was in a rush or had a lot of things on her mind. Who would blame her? I mean, many people imagine they have a lot of important things on their mind. This is New York, you know. But as she got almost level with the musician, she popped a pair of earbuds into her ears. She did so casually, not demonstrably. I don't care what it was she was going to listen to, even if it were like Mozart, Puccini, Tchaikovsky, Gershwin, or a lecture on climate change. It doesn't matter. Evil snobbery can be quiet, even understated, but it's invariably obnoxious. The guitarist did not matter. He was beneath her, dirt under her feet, socially, intellectually, financially. Demonstrably would have been better. I don't like your music and I don't like you. That, believe it or not, would have been okay. But casually popping in those earbuds showed that even acknowledging the existence of the guitarist and his music was beneath her. You can excoriate that kind of snobbery, sure, but you can also make fun of it. I prefer the latter. Now, the other kind of snobbery, aesthetic and intellectual snobbery, it's not merely healthy, it's one of the few things left to those of us who appreciate grace, harmony, and beauty, not just in architecture, but pretty much in everything on God's green earth. Here's how it works. If you look at chronologically the Pantheon, Notre Dame, St. Peter's Basilica, the buildings on Via Cavour in Rome, the Ansonia, the Woolworth, the Empire State, the old Boston City Hall, and then at the Seagram building on Park Avenue, you can't help but wonder, like, what happened here? Who put it here? Do they seriously perceive this as architecture? Why is it taking up room in public space? Why are we forced to look at it? Friends, Romans, countrymen, rest easy. Architecture it is not. Architecture can't be trite, boring, or hostile, and above all, it cannot be joyless. Ergo, this isn't architecture. Or disposable. Genuine architecture is not disposable. Sky-high file cabinets look disposable. Incidentally, many of those they're cobbling together as we speak have an expiration date, an official expiration date, 50 years. 50 years.
After us, the deluge.
Planned obsolescence. Disposable. Calling this architecture is a category error. Look, you can't seriously call plastic forks silverware, and a plastic cup is not a snifter. Genuine architecture is built to last. The apologist of, say, the Bauhaus style might say it has extraordinary proportional control, elegant repetition, calmness, spatial clarity, urban dignity through the plaza setback, and a kind of almost mathematical serenity. Your early examples, Ricky, are largely civic, religious, residential, or symbolic monuments, whereas the Seagram is fundamentally corporate architecture. It represents a different civilization with different priorities. It is truthful to the age that produced it. What a crock of shit. What proportional control? Nothing sticks out anywhere. There are no protrusions, no ornament. It's a box. There's nothing to control. How is that repetition elegant? It's primitive. Corporate? Well, the Woolworth is also corporate, but, well, let's take a look at this masterpiece. This one's residential. 432 Park Avenue, New York City. It represents a different civilization with different priorities. Yeah, that's correct. 15% occupancy on average. Cracks keep popping up everywhere. Pipes burst. What exactly are those priorities you're talking about? They call it modern and contemporary. Well, excuse me. The Seagram was thrust upon us in the year of our Lord 1958. That's 68 years ago. Back then, television was black and white, rotary phones were high-tech, and cars had tail fins. Modernity is one of the most misleading terms in history. Look, electric cars, invented and produced commercially over a century ago. Indoor plumbing dates back to ancient Rome, some say Sumer. Phone lines, automobiles, jeans, refrigerators, trains, airplanes, washing machines, all invented long before your grandpa was born. No, the slab is hopelessly dated, pointedly inelegant, utterly hostile to the idea of ensemble, and also hostile to humans. It's oppressive. It's a box. When you realize that it's not architecture, and when you aren't afraid to say so, you're exercising your right to be a snob. That kind of snobbery is good for you. It's healthy. It keeps you sane. It also shows that you're capable of critical thinking. Now let's resurrect another term from the past. Philistines.
Philistines?
Not the biblical Philistines, today's Philistines.
Oh, what would those be?
Oh, come on. You don't know?
I'm flaky, but do enlighten me.
Well, the term was coined in German territories in the 17th century, entered the English language in the 19th century, and was popularized by Matthew Arnold, who criticized what he playfully referred to as the materialistic middle class. Following which, the word took on a number of new connotations, and today, to my way of thinking anyway, it has little to do with our rapidly dwindling middle class per se, and a lot more to do with the department store chain named Glamour and Tchotchkes. You don't have to have a lot of money to shop at their stores. If you do have a lot of money, they have items specifically tailored to your esteemed budget. More money than taste, yes, but more precisely, a Philistine is a person whose purchasing power exceeds his or her cultural and spiritual needs. With the exception of paupers, possibly part of the group whom the Savior classifies as the poor in spirit in his Sermon on the Mount, since they're all but stripped of free will, have little or no power to make choices, and can only depend on God for everything. With the exception of those, every stratum in society has its own Philistines, with their own preferences. For instance, the Philistines among the poor, with minimal purchasing power, they favor excess trinkets, gold chains, bracelets, loud branding, loud hairdos, manicures, and so forth. And that's okay. The Philistines among the middle class, they're fond of placing porcelain figurines on top of the piano, having 2 TV screens in the same living room, multiple cars, exclusive middle-tier resorts, things that, to their way of thinking, signal, look at me, I am not a commoner. I'm gonna let you in on a secret. Here in New York, we have a number of absolutely astonishing beaches. From utterly historic Coney Island, mentioned numerous times in American literature, specifically by O. Henry and Damon Runyon. And then there's Brighton Beach, Manhattan Beach, Atlantic Beach, Long Beach. The latter has this powdery white sand. The swimming season begins in the second half of June and ends in September, 2.5 months. Coney Island is serviced, among other means of transportation, by the Q train. If you put your mind to it, you and your wife or girlfriend, or you and your husband or boyfriend, can theoretically spend the day at the beach, drop by the adjacent amusement park, gorge on Italian sausages and American or German or Belgian beer, then shower, there are showers on the boardwalk, put your clothes on, board the Q train, arrive at Carnegie Hall in less than an hour without changing trains, and take in a concert. That's aesthetic snobbery at its best. And yes, during that same period, late June to early September, airplanes take off from all 3 New York area airports, carrying New Yorkers to Aruba, a resort island in the South Caribbean. Why Aruba especially? Oh, because it's very clean, the water is unbelievable, and there's no plebeians around, no rabble, a dream vacation. It's a status thing. Philistines are always worried about their status, or what others think about their status. Now, wealthy Philistines, with all but unlimited purchasing power, well, they have yachts and vacation houses, of course, and exclusive clubs, but also ultra-expensive paintings. Expensive not because they have any artistic or aesthetic value, they do not. They're abstractions, but rather because they represent status, since everyone in their circle agrees that that's what they do, represent status. A heartwarming consensus. And of course, disposable pseudo-architectural monstrosities. It's also their thing, yeah. Which is fine, or would be fine. I mean, live and let live, right? So they have no taste, so what? They're still people made in the image and after the likeness of God. So your obligation is to love them anyway, in spite of their shortcomings and drawbacks and everything. I mean, having no taste isn't the only drawback a human being can have, nor the worst one, right? That's right, but that is not the problem. If you like your little porcelain elephants or ballerinas, if you like to fill your house with tchotchkes, no matter how vulgar, it's your house. And it's your democratic right to fill it with whatever pleases you most. The problem is that, historically speaking, Philistines of all walks of life did not become true Philistines until politicians, lawyers, and yes, philosophers, and yes, novelists, and playwrights, and movie makers convinced them that they were the cat's meow, that taste is relative, that perception is relative, and before anyone knew what was what, this entire civilization, the very thing that took humanity thousands of years to put together, it started flattering them, catering to them, pandering to them. And that got to people's heads, as flattery normally does. Suddenly, Philistines became insufferably smug, arrogant, obnoxious. They took their aversion to harmony and grace to the next level. To this day, there are people out there, good people, seemingly reasonable people, grown-ups, who claim that fake architecture is superior to genuine architecture that speaks to the Canon. that fake architecture is modern. Goodness gracious. And that they prefer it over what they call the old stuff. They say it in all seriousness and imagine that it affords them validation and lands them on equal footing in matters artistic and spiritual with those who appreciate beauty and harmony. And because they're so numerous and loud, the world continues to fill with these eyesores decade after decade. Everything is relative? No, that's a joke. Einstein's theory of relativity relies entirely on the fact that the speed of light is a fixed, unchanging absolute. Without an absolute foundation, the math falls apart, as does culture.
Absolutely.
The history of architecture, from Vitruvius till World War II, is not a simple, innocent story you can safely tell your children at bedtime. People suffered. People died. There was a lot of blood and sweat, trial and error. And little by little, the three canons were established, and the resulting built environment became more and more eye-pleasing, more harmonious. Finally, with the advent of the Industrial Revolution, humans began to use architecture to construct decent-looking living space, not just for the aristocracy, but for everybody. It was a slow process, but the architects, engineers, and developers were doggedly determined and highly dedicated. They persevered. Now, following World War II, Philistines finally took over and began to besmirch, befoul, and ultimately destroy that which humanity had been putting together for 3,000 years, with things like this, and this, and this. Do they strike you as monuments to human achievement? Is this beautiful? Breathtaking? Goosebumps, anyone? The Philistines didn't just take over the zoning boards. They hijacked schools and universities and the media. They appointed themselves curators of taste. They want you to believe that the boxy 50-year expiration date file cabinet possesses some sort of inner truth, whatever they mean by that. So what do we do? What can we do? Well, for starters, we could practice healthy snobbery, cultural, architectural, even linguistic. Language is a wonderful thing, divinely inspired. It needs to be treasured. It is not disposable. It should be respected, beginning with phonetics, a discipline that deals with laying stress on the right syllable. Certain words should be pronounced properly because they're musical. It is very much a matter of good taste. Applicable, not applicable, because it's not derived from the word lick. It's exquisite, not exquisite, because it's not derived from the word quiz. It's comparable, not comparable, because comparable sounds more elegant. And it's definitely hospitable, not hospitable, because it's not derived from the word spit. Linguistic snobbery helps us define things as they are, strip away euphemisms, call a spade a spade. Here's the old Boston City Hall. The proportions follow the tripartite division, the absolute rule of 3, mirroring a classical column or a human being, a base, a body, and a crown. The ground floor is built with heavy, rusticated granite blocks. The windows are smaller and square. Visually, this gives the building weight, roots it firmly to the earth like a strong pair of legs or the pedestal of a statue. As your eyes move upward to the second and third floors, the stone becomes smoother, the windows get taller, and the ornamentation becomes more delicate. The building literally lightens up as it ascends. The proportions of the windows are strictly governed by the golden ratio, ensuring the glass-to-stone ratio feels perfectly balanced, never empty or overwhelming. Now, the entire building is topped with a soaring mansard roof that gives the structure a definitive, elegant punctuation mark against the sky. Every single detail, from the brackets under the roof to the carvings around the windows, every single detail speaks to every other detail. Now here's the new Boston City Hall, completed in 1969, 57 years ago. It is an inverted Aztec pyramid. The top tier is a massive concrete block looming over the lower levels. Visually, it feels unstable and threatening, as if thousands of tons of raw concrete are about to crush the plaza below. The top has no crown. It just stops. It is a flat, jagged edge sliced against the sky, offering no architectural punctuation mark, no transition. It rejects the sky just as it rejects the ground. The middle section is a chaotic, asymmetrical jumble of protruding concrete boxes. It's inhuman. It's a mockery of civic order. It is not architecture. Here's the Gherkin in London, England. Also decidedly not architecture, but for different reasons. All phallic jokes aside, it is not a building. It is a semi-abstract sculpture. 8 Spruce Street, Manhattan. Not even a sculpture, but what today's art industry refers to as an installation. 242 West 53rd Street. A giant laundry hamper. You see, the term human scale, when applied to architecture, takes us back all the way to Vitruvius, the father of architecture, whose main idea is that architectural proportions should be based on human proportions. The base, the shaft, the crown. Every column is proportionate to the human body. Doric, male; Ionic, female; Corinthian, a young girl. Every measurement is a multiple of the column's diameter. And every detail speaks proportionally to every other detail. That's the canon. It follows, doesn't it, that if your design is not based on human proportions, it's, well, inhuman. It is also tacky, a symbol of the Philistine takeover. I'm Ricky Vernio, coming to you from Brooklyn, New York, and I'll see you soon.